Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Here again with criminal defense attorney Tim Forshee, who you should go to for your NFA trust, also for your Arizona CCW. And certainly, if you live in Arizona, this is the guy who I would call first if ever, God forbid, I was in a defensive shooting. Wow. Yeah, so that's that. And we recently had one out of Brazil that I think is kind of a reversal of what we normally discuss on this. You know, somebody says, well, if somebody punches me, it might kill me, and so therefore I will consider it deadly force and shoot them. And we've said an awful lot. I wouldn't do that.
Back off.
That's going to get you charged at the very least, and it's going to cost you an awful lot of money to convince a jury, if you can, that that's okay. But in this particular case, we had a defender who a guy came up with his hand stuffed in his pocket, trying to rob him, and our defender used ordinary force, punched the guy right in the face, caused that guy, just flash knocked him out, hit him right on the button. Dude fell, cracked the back of his head on the pavement doing that, and died right there.
DRT.
Yeah.
And if you watch the video, the guy didn't twitch after that.
No,
He's done.
He was done.
Right. Yep.
And, I want to talk to the attorney about, I didn't mean to kill him, but is that going to be justified conduct, or am I going to get charged with manslaughter?
Firearms Legal Protection is who I trust to help me after a use of force incident. If you're a Firearms Legal Protection member, I will also be on your team as a consulting expert, and you can attend our monthly active self-protection training seminars for free. Check out all they offer to their members at the link below.
And I know.
It's always gray.
I know the answer is it depends. In this case, given these facts, right? I don't think he certainly wasn't trying to kill him. Right. But what the standard of the law is, the statute of manslaughter says I either recklessly or negligently, through my recklessness or negligence, caused the death of somebody unintentionally, right? And if I did, well then, that by definition is manslaughter.
Reckless is manslaughter.
Right.
Negligent would be Alec Baldwin, right? What we call negligent homicide in Arizona.
Negligent homicide.
So yeah, you do have to distinguish between that. But either way, it's homicide.
Thankful for the attorney correcting me.
Either way, it's an illegal act and they're both homicide, right? Whether you're in prison for 7 years or 14 years, your mortgage is gone at that point anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, I guess I would say, as I recall, there wasn't any audio with this video. Is that correct?
There wasn't.
And so we don't know what was said, right? But the guy came up with a Jimmy Cagney. He had his finger in his pocket and was, and clearly was acting disruptful and was causing, was putting his hands on him and getting disruptful. And if our guy really believed that there was a weapon involved, then I guess maybe a hypothetical question would he have been justified had he drew his own weapon and fired?
Right.
I think probably, yeah.
I think so. And if you go watch the video again, links in the description. When you go watch it, as soon as he knocks him out, he goes and fishes his pocket, right? He goes and pats him down.
Which means to me that he had a reasonable belief that the guy was armed.
Yes.
And so I guess I would always say, well, if I would have been justified in shooting the guy, then clearly I'm justified in punching the guy, right? So I think that would, if you analyze it that way, it sort of lends itself to a pretty easy analysis. But we don't know what was said. And was he just doing a routine pat down like he would do with anybody that he was in a fight with? You and I might do even if we didn't know if there was a weapon involved, just to make sure.
Right.
Well, I don't know that we'll ever know.
And I think in this case, because I think the guy has his hand in his pocket, our guy shows via that kind of, action at the very end. I checked him for weapons because I was pretty sure he was armed because he said he was or whatever. Then deadly force is authorized and the punch causes it. Now, again, let's change the facts just a little. All right, so we're going to just tweak the facts. Comes up and says, give me your wallet or I'm going to beat your ass. A very common thing, right? We call that a strong arm robbery, a robbery by force, right? Now, I know some people in Texas are going to talk about Texas Penal Code 9.42, that you can stop a robbery with deadly force in the state of Texas, and yes, you can. Robbery is the taking of somebody's property by threat or use of force, okay? Here in Arizona, that ain't going to fly. It's got to be an aggravated robbery. Okay?
It has to be, if it's a property-only crime, yeah, you're justified, right.
And so, but the idea here is, all right, so we tweak it just a little bit. He doesn't threaten with a gun, doesn't say he has a gun, but he says, I'm going to beat you up if you don't give me your wallet and your phone. And the guy goes, nope, I'm better at fighting than you, and punches him, and that kills the guy. Do you think he gets charged in that case?
Probably not, because, well, again, it would depend on a lot of things. So to extrapolate your situation even more, is the guy a 6'3" black belt in jiu-jitsu, and he knew that punch would deliver that kind of force, and he expected that, and he breaks brick bats every weekend
Highly
for a
trained
hobby.
and knows the,
Now I know if I punch this guy and it connects the way I want it to, there's a strong chance this guy doesn't get up. Now I'm using lethal force in a situation where lethal force is not justified. Okay? What if, however, I'm just your normal, average, idiot guy that's thrown a couple punches in my lifetime, and I pop him and it just happens to catch him right on the point of the chin, and he falls down and just happens to hit the curb just right and dies. Right. Now, I wasn't using lethal force. It proved to be lethal, but it was physical force that was proportionate to the force that I was threatened with. He said, I'm going to kick your ass. I kicked his ass first.
Right.
Right. So I think, again, that would be justified. If I break 2x6s all day long with my fist, and I'm used to shattering bricks, and I decide to punch this guy, now I know I'm actually using lethal force. That would change the analysis a bit, I think. So
here's an interesting part of that, right? So as a guy, I got 16 years of martial arts study at this point. And so there is a higher standard when we have a higher level of skill to make good decisions. But I will say that I think having the higher level of skill is so useful.
It helps you understand to avoid the problem.
Right.
It gives you that sense of confidence. Somebody that's good with a gun doesn't need to be drawing their gun very quickly, right? I can let things go quite a bit further than somebody who is not able to understand how this stuff works. So that's the reason you train. That's the reason you spend time on the mats. Wish I could. That's the reason that I go to the range at least twice a week, because A, I enjoy it, and B, it gives me a lot more confidence and a lot more competence along with that confidence. So.
We see that on badge cams all the time, right? Highly competent cops. You can do stuff that's not a risk for you, and you can chill with people. Hey, let's talk about this. In this case, guy, again, changing the facts. He's not saying that he's got a gun, but he says, I'm going to whoop your butt. And you can change from, hey, man, I don't want to fight you because I don't want you to hurt me, to, hey, buddy, let's not fight. Let's not have that fight because I don't want to hurt you.
And let's make sure we always throw in, too, that a lot of people forget this. A lot of people say, well, just give him your wallet. All he wants is your wallet. You're going to lose $100. Big deal. That's not accurate. I think, about 25% of the people that are compliant in robbery attempts wind up being injured.
Yeah.
So it's like that. They might want to eliminate witnesses. It's my third armed robbery. If I get popped for this, I'm going to do life with no parole. So I might as well eliminate all witnesses, knowing if I get caught for that, I'm not in any worse trouble. And the math is pretty easy. And so you got to understand that just mere compliance is not some magical coupon that keeps you from being injured. If it were, that's what we'd all do.
Right.
But it doesn't work
is an
that
option.
way. It's an option, and sometimes it does work. But
it gives you a 75% chance to get out without injury, which is better than a coin flip.
That's correct.
Now, of course, the statistics say that if you are in an armed robbery and you get your gun out and a shot off, that chance of injury goes down to 6%. So that
sounds like you're 400% safer to me.
Yeah, it sounds like you're 400% safer to me. But again, having a higher level of skill. All right. So the other side of that is if you go, well, I'm not going to train in martial arts then, or I'm not going to train on how to punch somebody because then I'll be held to a higher standard. Also, your chances of actually being effective with that punch are significantly less, and you're still dealing with the same problem because you went, leave me alone, you bad man.
And you're flailing away with no option of delaying that response because you're low training. Yeah.
Right. And so I'd rather be highly trained and highly competent, and then again be able to make the argument that says, listen, man, what my intent was here was to stun him. He moved at that last second. It just hit him on the button. That was not my intent. And that could be a plausible answer, So tell me what you were trying to do.
This might be a good time to talk about something that's called the eggshell thin victim, or in a tort case we call it the eggshell thin plaintiff. But yeah, what if the guy that he punched in the head, I don't know, had just been going through a regimen for cancer treatment, and his bone had decayed, and he had a very, very, very fragile skull, and I punched him with what would normally be a very moderate punch, and fractured his skull, and he died from a brain hemorrhage.
Right.
Okay. Then people say, well, that was just a normal punch. No, you take the victim as you find them.
Yes.
Right. So that is the eggshell thin plaintiff gets all the benefit of their eggshell thinness. So we're not really talking about that here, but be aware of the fact that if you hit somebody with what you think is a normal degree of force, and they suffer an abnormally severe injury, you bought it. And so you need to make sure you understand that as well. So go around, smashing brick bats on the weekends. Make sure you understand that the goal is to not ever do that for real. So.
Now, of course, in the case that we're looking at here, we have an innocent party aggrieved by a robber,
Totally
who is
different.
then defending themselves,
If he's eggshell thin, it just makes it easier to stop him. At that
right.
point, yeah.
Whether someone's eggshell thin or not, don't threaten people. Don't put your hands on folks, right? As Lieutenant Tim Cotton, retired from the Bangor Police Department, says, be kind to one another. Keep your hands to yourself and leave other people's things alone, right? It's a pretty simple rule for life.
Everything we needed to know we learned in kindergarten. We're being always back to that book.
Be kind to one another.
Right.
Keep your hands to yourself. Leave other people's things alone, right? There's a good way to do things. But And so in this case, I don't think he's going to have any problems. I think he used force that was adequate to the problem. That guy, once again, he paid the band, so he gets to hear the tune, right?
Yep.
And so that is what it is. If you're the aggressor, on the other hand, and not a good, sane, sober, moral, prudent person, you get the victim as they showed up.
That's right.
And if they were frail, well, then you get what you got, and you earned everything that you got. And so in this case, I don't think he'll have a problem. I think, though, I don't want us to get that to the point that goes, aha, I've seen someone die from a punch.
Yep.
And so, therefore, every punch I'm going to consider a lethal threat.
I've worked on a couple cases where people die from a single punch to the face. So, and I'm sure
It
you
can
have
happen.
too. I'm not going to say it happens every time or that it's frequent, but it does happen. When you punch somebody hard in the face, especially if you know what you're doing, there's a risk that this is going to wind up a lot worse than people think on the playground when they were 6th grade.
Right.
Yeah.
And in this case, because the guy was threatening him with what he thought was a gun, fine. Chop him in the throat, poke him in the eye, shoot him. Great. Not a problem. Just something for us to be aware of. So, Tim, man, I really appreciate especially the eggshell thin plaintiff.
Yeah,
that's a useful tool and a useful item that you should put in your mind. Thanks for checking in, everybody.